Hello and welcome back to another episode of Rugby with Pads. Just trying out some new setup stuff today, so please bear with us if there's any technical problems. But yeah, I'm your host Sam, and welcome back to another episode. Today we are going to be doing something not so different. If you listened to the show at all last week, you were gifted. I guess gifted. You were made to endure 7 different versions of mock drafts. Now, these were all hypothetical mock drafts based on particular standards or particular types of things we did. We did so some ones around Dynasty Superflex and randomizers, and put us in some situations where we weren't particularly comfortable. But today we're going to be flipping the switch a bit. And if you're into value, well, value is what you are going to get. So today we are going to be exploring three, not one, not two, but 3 mock drafts that we're comfortable with, and we're comfortable with the scenarios around. We're going to be looking at 3 home leagues of various different severities. We've done all Dynasty stuff, we've done all that, but we're talking about the League of Record, better league by Farvre, in my world. We are going to look at the League of Collusionary Gentlemen, the beginners league that we started last year, and we expanded from 8 to 14 people. And we're going to be looking at what we're going to be doing in the zombie draft, which is we're probably looking at about 18 people at the moment. We're going to randomize it. We're going to be pushing it over pretty soon. But yeah, you're in for 3 mock drafts. Once again, if you're listening on audio, we'll try and make this work for you guys. But this is probably the kind of content that's maybe slightly better viewed on YouTube. So please head over there if you feel like it. So without further ado, let's head on into League of Record. And I did this last year, and it was a really interesting exercise because, to be fair, last year it acted as a bit of a bait to everyone. I did it to my my own league and said, come and beat me, basically. I said, this is what I'm going to do, and I pretty much stuck to it, and urged people to listen to see if they could get a leg up on me. This year I'm going to do it slightly different. I'm doing it a little bit ahead of the draft, so this should be coming out on maybe the 14th, maybe the 16th. I don't know yet, but we're filming it a little bit ahead. And we're going to be looking to drive people's ideas in advance of that, just to see if I can unnerve people last minute. But League of Record has changed because there's a keeper league now. It has been for the last couple of years. And what I've done is I've looked at the last year's keepers. You're not allowed to keep anyone in round 1 or 2, and you're not allowed to keep anyone who was a keeper before. But there are some really interesting keeper options here. And I've looked to put the best value ones that I think are there. Now, I think some might change. I think Traylon Burks might change a little bit. Josh Jacobs might change if he doesn't get the contract terms he needs. Brian Robinson, there weren't many to pick on that side. But so Brian Robinson maybe. I think some RJP Ryan is a low risk one. Ken Walker, Jalen Hurts, I think is very obvious. He's going to be, John and Caroline are going to be going there. And speaking with Ed, I think he's going to go to Devontae Smith. But I get Justin Fields in the 15th, the last round, which gives me a lot of power. Now, there were better players, no doubt. I could have taken someone different, and maybe I ought to have. But Justin Fields, for me, was a person I can build my team around. So we're going to try that now. So we're going to start the draft and see what happens here. Now, I'm going to be using my tier-based ranking. Obviously, we do it with everything. I think it is the best way to draft, but we are going to be paying particular attention to some key players and some stacks. First round goes how you would expect. It's half PPR. So Christian McCaffrey, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Bijan goes early, actually. Cooper Kupp, Stephon Diggs, Austin Eckler, Tyreek Hill, and AJ Brown. That's kind of what I expected. Now, I am looking for some real value in the first round at wide receiver, and I'm tempted to go wide receiver a little bit late on this one. I've been playing a lot where I've been going with the likes of Stephon Diggs if he drops, AJ Brown if he drops at number 10 slot. But what I might do is just roll the dice a little bit and go to running back. Now, I'm looking at my tiers here. There's not anyone who really jumps out at me as being really good value. I'm not going to take Patrick Mahomes because I've already got what I consider to be a wide receiver QB one. Not going Jonathan Taylor. Saquon Barkley is still attractive to me, but I still think I'm going to go wide receiver first. And someone who's really jumped up in my estimations and jumped up my my tier list is Davante Adams. I think he's going to be the one lone option there. I'm then going to back him up with someone who I think is going to be just solid. We have a bit of risk because Jimmy G is a bit of a risk potentially. But Devontae Adams can take it short. He can go long, no matter what you need. But I really like Nick Chubb, and Nick Chubb has been solid. And I think about the opportunity cost there. He's got no one in the backfield with him. They're going to have to throw it to the running back occasionally. He's the guy. So we start off with Devontae Adams and Nick Chubb. Second round goes pretty much how you expect. CD Lamb, Derrick Henry, Barkley goes there. Jonathan Taylor. I don't know why. Ramondre Stevenson always goes early. We've got Pollard at the end, followed by our first quarterback off the board. We've got Josh Allen. Travis Kelce was a keeper. Patrick Mahomes, Breece Hall. Like Breece Hall pick there, actually, unless Dalvin Cook goes there. Unfortunately, Jamar Gibbs goes early, which puts my ideal would have been Jamar Gibbs there, really. But instead, I'm probably going to go and load up on. I'm going to do another wide receiver, and I'm going to do another running back here. So Joe Burrow goes just for the top kind of options for me are DK Metcalf, who I am really high on still, and I probably will remain high on. I'm making sure I don't look at any competing options here. I'm going to go DK Metcalf. I think he's going to be so good. He's a red zone threat. He's almost a tight end in his size. And I'm going to go Joe Mixon. I've talked about it a lot already. I think Joe Mixon's opportunity is fantastic, so I'm going to go with him. So Devontae Adams, Nick Chubb, DK Metcalf, and Joe Mixon. And pairing that in mind with the fact that I've got Justin Fields in the background means I can focus on those positions. Now, the player that I really wanted to go for the stack was DJ Moore. Now, DJ Moore went in the middle of the 5th round, which is a shame. The tight ends are starting to go. We've got Kittle and Hockenson going. They're pretty high on my list. My next highest guy, is he going to get back to me? And really the guy I want to target, and if I can get him, is going to be Darren Waller. Although I might wait a little bit because I've got Justin Fields. I'm thinking about the stack. I'm thinking Cole Kmet, and Cole Kmet is way, way further down here. Do I want him as my number one? Maybe not. But this is a half PPR league, so I need to make sure I'm picking up receptions where I can. And someone who I think is going to pick up a lot of receptions, but also get a lot of touchdowns, is going to be Drake London. I'm thinking about the opportunity cost again, and I'm going to go for him. So, if you're watching on YouTube, you've already seen me click him. Drake London, I think, is going to be a fantastic option for you. It's going to be a run-heavy offense, but the narrow target tree, which arguably does include Bijan Robinson, I think Drake London rises above that, and Arthur Smith is of that coaching tree that I think he will change things up a little bit based on situation. I really do believe in him there. Yes, they will run the quote-unquote piss out of the ball, but I think Drake London will see his, which puts me in a difficult situation because it takes Kyle Pitts off the table. Am I going to go for another running back? I'm looking at the guys and playing the ADP game here. Dalvin Cook is interesting to me here. Alvin Kamara, had he not gone before, he's obviously gone up in a lot of people's draft boards, gone up early. I'm not looking at some of these guys here. I would like Trevor Lawrence if I wasn't a keeper league. J.K. Dobbins is interesting to me. Cam Akers, I don't think really shines. You know what? I think I'm going to punt on both those positions and maybe reach a little bit for a wide receiver who is unlikely to get back to me. Or do I go with someone who I think is going to, just get targets? And I think Chris Godwin in the slot. He's just staring at me there, and I'm looking at my tier list. He's an obvious pick for me, so I am going to go Chris Godwin. So I've got 4 wide receivers, so I'm probably going to leave it there for a little while in wide receivers and make sure to address other positions. There's someone who I really hope is coming back. Dallas Goedert goes, Kyle Pitts goes. If you know who I want, it's probably a tight end. And looking at the shape of things, maybe he was going to come back to me. Unless Ed managed to snipe me, he does snipe me. Darren Waller goes 7-9 here, a bit ahead of where I'd expect him to go. But you know what? These things happen from time to time. This leads me to pivot a little bit. Now, I'm thinking about the kind of players who I think can make an impact week on week. This is a 2 running back, 2 wide receiver, 1 flex position. It's a wide receiver, running back flex. I'm now thinking about tight end. I don't like the idea of Evan Ingram without the stack of Trevor Lawrence, sorry. So I'm thinking about who's just going to get a bit of volume and who could be useful to me. And I really like the idea of A.J. Dillon in that system. He was definitely on the rise last year. I like Rashad White, but I've got Chris Godwin. I don't think Rashad White is really the player I really want. I think A.J. Dillon has the potential to break the 1,000-yard mark. I think he could be useful in relief. Aaron Jones is a bit slighter. A.J. Dillon potentially a bit more robust. You know what? As a running back 3, who I don't think is going to play much, he's a good pick. Now, if I play the ADP game, I'm looking for a tight end. Some of these guys are running tight end. I don't particularly like at this value. I do like Dalton Schultz and Dalton Kincaid and Chig Okonkwo, who are probably going to come back to me unless someone reaches. They're playing against a computer. I doubt they will. Cole Kmet, where is Cole Kmet? Is he already gone? No, he hasn't. Of course, he hasn't. But I'm looking at Cole Kmet, who will definitely make his way back to me. He's after there. So I'm thinking about maybe going another running back and then seeing off running back for there. And I know I talked myself out of Rashad White, but here's a volume play. There's an option there. James Cook hasn't got any real competition there as pass catcher. Can I see him doing well? I probably can. And really, at this stage, I'm thinking, who's going to be the guy who might get open. And if I look further down, it really drops off after that. And I don't like the idea of. Well, I don't mind the idea of Khalil Herbert. So I'm just thinking about who's going to be the highest value there and who might be a number 1 in their system. And really, I'm going to look at all this and look at my cheat sheet here. And I keep going back to a guy who I think is going to be very consistent and who I'm growing in my adoration of. And I'm going to go for Deontay Johnson, someone I haven't even talked about in my ramblings there. But he is my last wide receiver. I promise. He's my last wide receiver for now. We'll see what happens. So after he goes, Marquise Hollywood Brown goes, Evans, Pittman. It's amazing to me that perennial 1,000-yard receiver in Mike Evans goes in the 8th or 9th round. Jahan Dotson, who is great. Gabe Davis, who I would have loved to have picked up, but I thought he might come back to me. He goes. There's that run on wide receivers, but I think everyone's kind of done there. That leaves me in a position where I can go anywhere I want. There's a lot of players who I like in this kind of range. I already talked about Khalil Herbert. He has a chance to join up with Justin Fields and get that stack. I don't think he'll be particularly used in the running game, but if it's a high-powered offense, which I think they will be, I think they'll be coming from behind quite a lot because it's a low-powered defense. Yeah, I like that. Although with the addition of Yannick Ngakoue recently, I do think the Bears may be a bit more deadly. But let's go Khalil Herbert as my 1 pick. When you're on the end, it doesn't matter about reaching so much because you effectively have the next 20 plus players to go for it. This is a 10-man league. So, it gives you some options here. I'm looking at where Kmet goes, and he will get back to me, but I think I need more than 1 tight end. And I think if Kmet is the pairing on a stack, we need someone who is a bit higher in my estimations. And I think at this value, if I look at my my tiers, I've got Evan Ingram sitting above Cole Kmet just, and I think it might be good value. So I'm going to go Evan Ingram here and hope that I can pair him with Cole Kmet in the next round, or the next couple of rounds to see if I can make that work. Penny, Charbonnet, Frymouth go next. We see players like Devin A.K.A, Zay Flowers, Cortland Sutton, who's gone down so much. I still hope he's going to be good for Dynasty. And Joker and Schultz go, so I probably wouldn't have got a chance at one of the guys. And I could go 2 tight end, but I'm not going to go 2 tight end. I'm going to go single tight end. I'm going to stick with a guy who I think can win weeks, and I think it's going to be Cole Kmet. You follow the money. He is obviously being seen as a franchise tight end. He's being paid $50 million over the next 3 years. I think that's a great pickup. So I'm going to get him. And now I'm just looking for value. Yeah, value everywhere. And in this format, there is a lot to be had because there's still loads of players on the board who I think can make a difference to this team or a difference in relief. I'm not looking to fill out my my kicker and defense yet. They will be the last 2 positions I get, but because I've got Justin Fields in the last, I get to go a bit ahead, although the computer might go early based on their feeling. I haven't got the most balance of sides. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. I can't count. 5 wide receivers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 running backs. Not really seeing much more value here in anyone, so I'm going to go with someone who is in a murky backfield. This is a kind of player that I could well drop and not be too bothered by it. I'm going to go with Jerick McKinnon. He, if I can get any part of the Kansas City offense, that's great. He will probably be used on 3rd down. Wait to see what that offense is going to look like. No one knows. Andy Reid will be cooking something up in the lab. Dalton Kincaid goes straight afterwards. It's a bunch of guys. You know what? Jameson Williams would have been a good shout for later on as a potential wide receiver one in the system, but who's got to wait. Chris Olave looks like he goes in the 12th, but he was a keeper, great keeper there. Brian Robinson comes in the start of the defenses. San Francisco 49ers goes off the board, as does Evan McPherson in the 8 slot here. People in similar situations to me. It's easy for me when it comes to defense. I love the Cowboys. I think there's so much consistency on their roster. They look great. And they're going to get you lots of sacks, lots of fumbles, and hopefully with Trayvon Diggs getting a big old contract, they're going to get you a fair few interceptions as well. And I'll finish off with Justin Tucker. That's my whole side. It runs out. I've obviously got Justin Fields at the end. He is my number one. He was my keeper. Nick Chubb, Joe Mixon, Devontae Adams, DK Metcalf, Evan Ingram, Drake London, Justin Tucker, Dallas Cowboys, and on the bench we've got Chris Godwin, AJ Dillon, Deontay Johnson, Khalil Herbert, Cole Kmet, and Derek McKinnon. And that would be a side I would be proud to bring back home this trophy once again, be the first repeat. People have done it twice, but people have never done it twice in a row. That's what I'm going to aim to do with this lineup. Let me know what you think. We'll take a quick break and we'll move on into another format in a second. We'll go on into our League of Collusionary Gentlemen, which is a really interesting league format, 14-man. Let me know what you think. Right, let's jump straight into it. League of Collusionary Gentlemen. We did you probably saw it earlier in the year, we did a lottery style draft. It's third round reversal because we've got lots of new people, so we've tried to make it as even as possible. Lottery style draft, I won it last year, which means I draw from last, so it goes as you would expect. It is a PPR league with 1 QB, 2 wide receivers, 2 running backs, tight end, a flex, kicker, and defense, and a bench. So very similar lineup, but more people. So my first pick here, I'm going to go with the obvious, and you know what? I'm going by my tiers, and I think it's going to be Devontae Adams and Nick Chubb again. Once again, I feel like that pairing right there is a fantastic pairing for any lineup, and you should be very proud if you manage to get those 2 slots on your team. Picking from 14th, I could have gone for a quarterback at that point. I was very tempted to. It's always nice to have a really, really powerful quarterback, but I thought they might go, and I just need to make sure I was covered with the 2 for spots. The 1 for spots, your tight end or the 1Z spots, tight end and QB. Normally leave a little bit later, but this is also a tight end premium league. So people like Travis Kelce and Mark Andrews do make a bit of a difference. And someone is calling out to me here. It's Mark Andrews. But you know what? Third round reversal, and I cannot give up on DK Metcalf. It just falls to me. I just like the same players, and I'm going to use the same players. I'm going to see how it falls. There were some players further down here which I really do like, and they're not going to come back to me. Okay, so maybe the third round is where I've really got to think, because these players are not going to come back to me. It's a long wait, and this is the opportunity to really make what my team looks like. And I feel like Joe Mixon is calling out to me because he's a player that's not going to come back to me. I've got a long wait, and then when I get back to it, wide receiver still looks good, but running back 2 does not. So I'm instead going to pivot away from DK Metcalf, as much as I love him, and I'm looking at my tiers. They're kind of equally balanced, and I'm going to go with someone who I think is solid. Mir Gibbs is probably better in terms of pop, but I'm going to go with someone who I think is solid, and I'm going to go with Joe Mixon there. So starting out, first 3 rounds, Nick Chubb, Joe Mixon, Devontae Adams in that reverse order there. Some players go straight afterwards. DK Metcalf goes shortly afterwards. Jalen Hurts goes. Lamar Jackson. So the top tier QBs are going quickly. I am probably going to be looking at wide receiver again. I'm very traditional when it comes to my makeup, especially if I'm at the back of drafts. And you've just seen 2 drafts where I'm right at the back. Funnily enough, because it's 2 leagues that I won last year. I'm looking at wide receiver here again, and I'm just feeling like the same names keep popping out to me, and I really like them. I don't mind having the option of Tyler Lockett at this point, but I probably want someone who's going to pop a little bit. I probably want someone who's going to be a target magnet, and that to me is Chris Godwin. I think he's an obvious target magnet, and someone who again is going to be a number 1 in their slot. And I'm not really liking the options. Am I liking the options? There's a lot of P players here, and some players are going to inevitably take 2 QBs. I don't like running two QBs in setups like this, but sometimes I think you have to. So I'm going to be looking instead at Trevor Lawrence. Going to go Trevor Lawrence. It's going to make sense a bit later, hopefully. And I'm going to go Chris Godwin and just secure those positions. Now, it is tight end premium, so people are like, oh, why didn't you go tight end? I could have gone Darren Waller. Yes, I probably would have liked that. He goes a bit further in the 5th round. This is obviously a 14-man, so everything is slightly skewed. The running backs, I'm glad I sorted early, because now you're delving into the positions of the guys who were options for me. The last one were Swift and Dobbins and Matson. Had I waited before, I would have been very disappointed. There's a chance that Miles Sanders or Damian Pierce could have got back to me, but I'm glad I've got quite a balanced side here, and it leaves me with a very obvious pick here. Now, I said in the last draft I didn't like Evan Ingram. I did pick him because of value, but I didn't like him without the stack. I've got the stack, so I'm going Evan Ingram here. I think it's a nice slam dunk choice, and I keep coming back to the same players, and I do want to branch out, but I know I should, and I probably will do a little bit. So I'm thinking, who am I more likely to play? I'm a lot more likely to play a running back who's just going to get yards, or am I going to play a running back or a wide receiver who I think could potentially be a number 1 in a particular week? And I'm going to go for the boom option. I'm going to go for, you know what? Brandon Cooks is coming up in my likings a lot, but I really do like Gabe Davis. I've gambled a lot on him. I'm going to go Gabe Davis, and Gabe Davis get in my side. So first 7 rounds, sorry. Devontae Adams, Nick Chubb, Joe Mixon, Trevor Lawrence, Chris Godwin, Evan Ingram, and Gabe Davis. AJ didn't go straight afterwards, so he was never an option to come back. Dak Prescott goes, John Watson in the middle of a round, Tua Tagovailoa. So again, I'm really glad I went for Trevor Lawrence a little bit earlier than maybe I should have, but it gives me one of those semi-elite, obvious QB1 kind of plays. I could have played late and I could have gone Aaron Rodgers. I probably would have been disappointed at this point, because I would have gone for Aaron Rodgers in this round. And then I'm going down to a round where I'm not as comfortable. But I'm pretty happy with where we're looking at here. And looking at the next set of picks here, it's a bit of funny scoring when it comes to defenses, by the way, because I do give more points for interceptions than other leagues, because I do like the idea that a defense should be able to make a difference. I'm looking at the running backs, and I'm not seeing anyone who is obvious except the same old guys. And I'm probably going to go for a 2 running back play here at the turn, because it just makes sense in my head. I'm going to go for Devon A.K.A, who I think has a chance to be a number 1. And I'm maybe stopping myself, because I think sometimes if you overload on a position, and there are people who come out of the woodworks in free agency, there will be free agents available in this league, hopefully. I like Jarrett McKinnon again, but he could be a throwaway player. I would maybe want someone who's less of a throwaway player and leaves me some options to open up later. And I'm going to go with Jameson Williams, probably someone who I should have gone in the last draft. Yeah, he's instantly going to go on my IR, but because we allow suspensions on IR, as do most sleeper leagues. I like that, because he could turn out to be better than Godwin and Davis in the long run, but you just got to wait 6 games for him to show that. There is an option here that I could pick up Jared Goff, maybe. I'm just looking at finishing this round. We're getting some tough names here, and we started getting people picking up kickers. I haven't given kickers any advice here, any better positions here, so I'm not sure why that's happening. Yeah, the computer does weird stuff, but you find in your main drafts, people do weird stuff. I'm weighing up who I go for here, and I'm looking at my tiers. I think I'm moving away entirely from running back at this point, because at this point, if I'm looking at the running back value here, Donta Foreman, Tank Bigsby, Zeke Elliott, maybe. Actually, Zeke's actually looking good, and this is the beauty of having the end points, because you can go twice. I do really like the idea of Romeo Dobbs. I think he's going to be a reception machine, and he's probably going to be working more in the slot than Christian Watson, so it's going to be available more. DJ Chark has an opportunity to be a number 1 in the system over there in Carolina. I don't like Jaron Johnson anymore now that they're bringing in every Tom, Dick, and Harry at tight end possible. I'm very glad I got out of that. And when you get further down here, these guys are going to be available much later on. So I'm looking at where it's weak on my squad. I'm not seeing many, so I'm just going to build on I'm going to build on the ability to boom, and I'm going to think that Zeke Elliott might come in, and he is good still. He could still be good. If they're going to run the ball a lot in Cowboys world, maybe he goes back there, and maybe he runs it a lot. I don't know, but I'm going to go there, and I've got to make another pick. Oh damn, forgot about that. I like the idea of Rushy Rice. It's all too early to pick any of the defenses, in my opinion. Even with having a lot of options there. I talked a big game about DJ Chark there. I do like it. Do I need another? I don't need another QB. I'll be able to pick one up. Although it's a 14-man league and people are picking up multiple QBs, I will have another spot to pick up someone later on. So I'm going to pick up Jared Goff. At the very least, I think he's a floor player and he's going to be good for this team. So I've got four running backs, I think. 4 running backs, 4 wide receivers, a tight end. I'm maybe looking at another tight end to finish off my draft. But we'll see what I'm going to do. And this is one of the draft pieces of advice I gave in my draft 102 is if you get a chance to lead a run, lead it. Now, this is a bit weird because there's lots more defenses and kickers going than there might be in a traditional draft if you're playing against people who know what they're doing. But that's just based on ADP, wobblies. But I'm going to go for a defense, and a defense that does drop nicely to me is the Pittsburgh Steelers. The thinking behind that is that all of the flex positions, etc., they're not going to change much because everyone's doing the same now. But I get to go ahead because I'm at the end of the draft. So I'm going to go Pittsburgh Steelers, and I'm going to pair with who's going to be a high-powered offense. You know what? Jake Moody was a 3rd-round pick. Must be good. So I'm going to go with Pittsburgh Steelers, and Jake Moody as my kicker. I don't like picking kickers early, but I don't feel like it's that early. I have to go with what it is. Kyler Murray goes shortly after. Kyler Murray would have been a good shout to pick up later on. He could have gone on injured reserve as well. I think we only have 1 slot, but it's what it is. It would be a nothing pick. So maybe that's something to learn for next time. Have a think about it. And I'm thinking about my flex spot. Who am I going next? I'm going. It's an all. Juwan Johnson came back to me. Mike Gesicki is one of my late end flyers. I always like. I've got him in. What do we call it? Dynasty. Now I like him as an option. I think in 2 tight end sets he could be great. So you know what? I'm going to go for Mike Gesicki. He's a known pass catcher, and he could definitely do some damage there. And that's the lineup. So we've got Trevor Lawrence, Nick Chubb, Joe Mixon, Devontae Adams, Chris Godwin, Evan Ingram, Gabe Davis, Jake Moody in the Pittsburgh Steelers. That sounds like a band name. Devin A.K.A, Jameson Williams, Zeke Elliott, Jared Goff, and Mike Gesicki. Let me know what you think. I think that's a pretty good mock, if I don't say so myself. Right, we'll do one last one. It's going to be a bit more randomized because I am not going to have prepped. I prepped these last 2 a number of times. The Zombie League is a different kettle of fish because there is a focus on what happens in week 1 because you have a very short lineup, and we'll go in that in a second. But also, you need to make sure you survive. If you don't survive, you become a zombie, and we don't want to become a zombie because you lose half of your fab. You have to rebuild your team from scratch and maybe regain your humanity eventually. So it is a semi-eliminator league. I go back and listen to that if you have. We've done a whole episode on it before, and I will be sending out more information and invites, hopefully, to people as well coming up. We're hoping to make it a big league and something that moves forward. But let's see what happens on the other side. Hello everybody and welcome back. This is probably the 4th, 5th time recording this. I've got a couple of weird seeds which I haven't really worked out in terms of what I want to achieve here. We can get something different. So I'm going to just randomly pick, and hopefully it won't be the last or the 14th pick, which is what I seem to get consistently on this one. So we're going to start out on the Dance Zombie draft as it would be in the actual zombie, and we're going to be completely from scratch randomized. So up until the tournament, we're not going to know who we're going to get. And this time I got the 3rd slot. Now I'm going to pick someone who, you know what, I'm going to zig a little bit while everyone zags. I'm going to go, this is really difficult. I'm going to go Travis Kelce. I think any option you've got Travis Kelce in the top 5 spots, you might have to take him outside of 1 and 2. He's really valuable. But Zombie Draft, you'll see on your screens now, is a bit different because I've only got 1 bench spot. And that's because it's a week-by-week game which promotes activity in the free agent market. So the idea behind it is that one person is a nominated zombie. They start out by basically losing their team and they have to rebuild it from free agents. everyone has access to the same free agents, but if you get turned into a zombie by effectively losing out on points, so you don't play head to head as such, you play against everyone else, and it's the last one to survive. The team who's a zombie, if they manage to score more than you, you end up becoming a zombie too, and you lose all of your team. So you lose all of your team to free agency, you lose half your fab, and you have to rebuild from there. So the idea is that the zombies have to work together to build the strongest team of the top guy to see if they can cannibalize and eat someone, basically. And the guys who are humans still who remain human have to fight to survive effectively as a pack until they eventually break off and you get one or two survivors. So there's a whole storyline. We'll publish it. We've actually published an episode on another pod, and when we do the proper league review, we'll do all of this. Look out for socials as well, because this will be a bit of an open invite. I think I might be inviting people outside of the world that we've dealt with already. We started out with Kelsey. It's a league where you actually have a lot of pass catchers, so it's very PPR heavy. It's tight end premium, and it's third round reversal. So as a third place, it's actually going to be difficult early on. So I need to make sure I play cleverly, and I'm going to play the experience card here, and there are 3 wide receivers, but there is a lot of running backs to come, and it's a big gap until I get my next go. There's going to be another 14 spots, so I'm not going to be picking until the next best running back is going to be Miles Sanders, and I don't want him to be number 1. I've got Travis Kelsey. It's like having an extra wide receiver, so I'm going to pick a running back at this point. I'm going to go big, and I'm going to go with Jahmyr Gibbs. Someone who I think is going to be fantastic in Detroit. I think he's going to be involved in the passing game. It's PPR league, mega upside here. He's going to be involved on second and third downs regularly. I really like Jahmyr Gibbs. I really like what the Detroit Lions are trying to do. Comes back to me, and again, I don't want to die first week, so I'm avoiding Alvin Kamara like the plague. We don't have any IR spots on this one, so I need to make sure I pick a player who I think is going to perform week 1. And because it's 16 players, I really need to think about all of my positions. So I'm thinking about QB this early, and Justin Fields is coming out. No, I'm thinking I might have to go for him. And this is going to be a really weird draft, but yeah, Justin Fields is going to be my pick for number 3. So starting out with Kelsey, Gibbs, and Justin Fields. I would never do that normally. Alvin Kamara goes straight after. DJ Moore, who I wanted to loop back and get, goes. Unfortunately, Drake London. I need to go for someone who I need reliable on that wide receiver bench. I need to score points week 1. And who else do I think is going to come up clutch but DeAndre Hopkins? I think he's going to be a fantastic wide receiver 1, or basically wide receiver 2 to Travis Kelsey over there. So I'm going to go with him. Now, this whole thing is unlike the other 2 drafts, because this isn't predictive what I'm going to get, because I don't know I'm going to get the third pick. What it does is hopefully it demonstrates some of the thinking behind this type of league. So there aren't many of this kind of leagues. There are a load of eliminators you can enter. There's some great charity ones that I'm in as well, and a load of best ball leagues. And best ball and eliminators and things like this get you thinking about the value of players differently. You need to think about situational. I'm thinking really survival week 1. Now I've got to think about the competition as well. And at this point I'm thinking, right, who's really going to score me the most points week 1 out of this next bunch? And I'm quite lucky that I get a bunch of players to pick every couple of rounds as well. I'm looking at Jackson Smith and Jigba. I like him a lot, but I don't like him in this format because he's got to hit the ground running. It's quite hard for a wide receiver to break out straight away. So I'm going to go for someone who I think has a safe floor. And you don't have to be the top scorer. You just have to be not the worst scorer. So I'm going to go Deontay Johnson here. Filling out my wide receiver bench here. Wide receiver roster here. Not liking the options that are coming up next. I've already got DeAndre Hopkins, so Treylon Burks is off the table here. Thinking about the running backs and looking about the next tier of guys, and it really drops off. AJ Dillon is a number 2. Cook isn't great. Maybe I could wait a little bit and go for someone like Samaje Perine, who I think could get early play. Khalil Herbert may not get back to me, but I think I'm going to have to take a bit of risk. And I'm hoping that some of these guys who've gone mega heavy on running back, just fall foul to that. So I'm going to look at a different position. And I'm going to be thinking about Jahan Dotson potentially. Brandon Cooks is a good shout. I really like that. Michael Thomas could be the number 1 in his set, but he hasn't performed over years. Instead, I'm going to look to pick up someone who I think is going to be solid week one and who's, I need to fill out that extra roster position as well. I'm going to go for another tight end. I'm going to go for Evan Ingram once again. I don't think he's flashy. I think he's reliable, but he's been franchise tagged and then given a long-term extension. I think they believe in him. So with this setup as well, now I've got an RB, wide receiver, and 2 flexes left. It looks like there's not going to be a huge amount of running backs left, so I'm probably going to have to lean on wide receivers and tight ends later on. Wide receivers late always makes sense. I've got rid of the QB problem, so I don't have to worry about that too much. So, and I'm really lucky. Both Samar JP Ryan and Khalil Herbert come up next, and I'm going to pick up Khalil Herbert because I really do believe he will be the running back 1 over there. He's shown it really well. He can catch the ball. Not great at catching the ball. Here we go. 161 yards last year, 1 rushing touchdown. That's not awful for a guy who didn't get all the touches behind David Montgomery there. I like his options, and I don't think he has a huge amount of competition, so I'm going to go Khalil Herbert, and I'm going to rely on that stack as well. If he is going to throw it, if they're going to be a high-powered offense, it's going to be Justin Fields or it's going to be someone like Khalil Herbert. I would have loved to have that. I think DJ Moore, because I think that triple stack actually works out really well if they're going to be a powerful offense. I would have quite liked Cole Kmet, but I've already got my tight end of choice there. I went around earlier. I'm looking at who's on the board here. Jameson Williams would be great later on, but he is definitely a depth play and will not be around week 1. I don't want to hold him on my bench because I think I need a bit more maneuverability in the first 6 weeks. So I'm looking at someone who I think is going to get manufactured targets. I don't trust Sky Moore. I would love to in the longer term, but I think he's going to come into his own. The guy who I think is been paid well to do what he needs to do, and Odell's been very well paid, but Adam Thielen has not got an insignificant contract. He is old though, but he's always produced. If I look at back his fantasy years, even in a down year, you still think it's pretty okay. 130 last year, 130 before. It's not spectacular, but again, I'm just looking to survive. I'm looking for points on the board. And that's where I'm going to go for a team who I think is going to throw a lot because I think they're going to be behind. And I'll go for Adam Thielen. Even if he has 50 of his 700 yards he's going to get this year in his first game, that will do fine for me. And that will keep us above water. Is that the right word? Yeah, above the surface anyway. I'm liking the look of this squad already. And as you can see, I'm actually going pretty much down the list, which is something that I wouldn't do normally. It's a really weird thing to do. I'm not looking for value. I'm looking to make sure my side is filled out, making sure that I have just, bodies who are actually going to play. Kendra Miller I like here at this spot, at the 9th round, because he is going to play for week 1, whereas Ezekiel Elliott probably isn't. I'm not liking some of the other names. I think Romeo Dobbs is a bit of a question mark. Jonathan Mingo I'm not going to pick because he's going to be biting into Adam Thielen's targets. Zay Jones, I've already got Evan Ingram. I trust him better. The other guys coming down the list here, it's not looking great. And I have a couple of guys later on who I do like. I really like Mike Gesicki and Van Jefferson here. I've already starred them, so I'll be going after them. I think I'm going to risk it, and I'm going to go for a Romeo Dobbs here. I'm going to get a pick soon after, so I'm going to be thinking about what's going to be my final 2 players, one of which is going to sit on the bench. So do I take a risk on someone who I'm going to play a little later? Maybe I do, and maybe someone who I think is going to develop. I'm going to look towards Mike Gesicki first as my pick in number 10. Then when it comes back, I'm going to hope that Van Jefferson stays available. I wouldn't mind Roshan Johnson there as well. He's already gone though, just in case he bites into Khalil Herbert's. But I've got a bit of protection when it comes to. I haven't got any protection when it comes to running back actually. So I'm thinking maybe Clyde Edwards-Helaire as a last step. But you know what? I'm going to trust it, and I'm going to trust that some of these guys might be available on the waiver wire should it need to pivot before the season starts. And I'm going to go with Van Jefferson. So my lineup as it stands is Justin Fields, Jahmyr Gibbs, Khalil Herbert. I didn't really commit to the 0 RB. I just think there's too many players to worry about that. DeAndre Hopkins is the wide receiver 1. Deontay Johnson is a safe floor player. Adam Thielen, Travis Kelce, who I think is the best pickup I could have had and makes up for that RB and wide receiver room looking a bit poorer. Evan Ingram, Romeo Dobbs, Mike Gesicki, and Van Jefferson on the bench. What would you have done? Would you have done something differently? Do you like the look of some of the other teams? The computers played it a bit weirdly, but a couple of 2 quarterback systems here, which I probably wouldn't have done based on the rarity of other positions. But you know what? people do weird things in drafts and you've got to pivot. So, yeah, how would you have done it differently? Well, that's enough for today. I've talked very fast on that one because I wanted to make sure that you guys kept up with me and that we weren't spending the whole evening here. But it was really fun doing those. I really enjoyed doing these kind of taunting drafts a little bit. So give my opposition, and hopefully a few of you are in these leagues watching, and you can see what the brain is thinking of. Obviously, this is updated with tiers on the IDK as of the 7th of August. That's when I'm recording this. So a little bit out of date. So you might not get the full picture. I might be pivoting a little bit based on some preseason rumblings, but we'll have to see. As always, thank you for listening, watching, however you consume this. It's really humbling that anyone does. If you want to support the pod, you can do so by liking and subscribing, following on all the social medias at Rugby with Pads, or buying some merch and a membership. www.rugbywithpads.com. We are still striving before the season to get an Etsy shop up there. If you just want some merch without the membership, I'm more than happy to oblige there. As always, thank you for listening, and I will see you on the virtual gridiron.